How you doing, everybody? Dr. James Petrick coming at you live on day 4 of Above, Down, Inside Out X3. We've laid the foundation on layer 1 of Above, Down, Inside Out. We talked about how chiropractic isn't necessarily about optimizing the structure so that one's function can improve. We have shown you how the function actually can dictate the structure. We gave an anatomical basis, observable hardware parts in the physical body. We also gave a physiological or an unseen basis to that as well, in the sense that when we're developing as a baby, the parts of our brain that are in charge of our ability to have good mobility, good posture, to think clearly, to adapt to stress in a timely manner, as well as have good sleep and energy, we gave the quantum physics model for describing that. And it is a mirror image, perfect representation of the actual anatomy. And I know that sounds complex, but we talked about how if you can decide a course through the forest, if you can create a path in your mind's eye, then a trail can be laid down after a few hundred people walk through. You can see where that path is. And then the anatomy book can come along and say, you see there, it's because of that hardware, it's because of that wiring that the body works the way it does. But I say even before that, this isn't my phrase, it's just the way things are, that nerve cells that fire together eventually become wired together. And then we call that anatomy. But I want you to understand the complexity of what we've done. We've gone from the seen to the unseen, the Newtonian to the quantum, the anatomy, or what is and what seems to be sustained, and we created a parallel diagram to how it got there in the first place, the genesis or the creation of it, and also the maintenance of it. Now, if a person takes a world view that there are design elements everywhere, then it shouldn't be hard to understand that there is a fractally, geometrically correct way of viewing how the brain communicates with the body. When your head's on straight, your body works better. Brain-to-body connection as a result of the chiropractic adjustments that we do here at Prior Lake Spinal Care. And we use the same model to learn about how our mind works. If I said, what does your mind look like? What would you think of? What would you draw a picture of for me? What would come out? It's kind of one of the most important things, right? If I said Minnesota Vikings, what are you thinking of? You're probably thinking of a team running around in a purple uniform and they got horns on the side of their head. If I said Batman, you're probably thinking of a guy with horns on his head and he has a cape and he has a cool car. You're not thinking Batman. So I want you to appreciate the simplicity and the beauty of what we're doing here. Just like how there's a principle plus a dilemma, and aligning ourselves correctly with natural law, making sure that we're flipped on into the correct position so that we can have a certain result. And when that result is maintained, which is completely within your control, then in math, we get beautiful pictures like this. Goes on for infinity. You know that the human brain is more complex than the entire internet? So when you think about things, when you learn things, when you go back in time and you remember that thing that was maybe a setback for you, and when you determine to make that into a stepping stone instead of a setback, that's what's happening to your brain. Actually, more like this, figuratively, or structurally, more like this. That's a tree. You see the big shape, and you zoom in, and it's the exact same shape. And I'm not saying that nerve cells are, the billions of nerve cells in your brain that you have are the exact same shape, but they do network out, and they do branch like that. There's a very real, sort of geometry that's taking place. And the reason this is so important is because in your most formative years, before you were 2 years old, a lot of your habits and beliefs were kind of being downloaded and installed into your mainframe. And maybe a lot of those were good. Maybe some of that stuff needs to be optimized and improved. And it's helpful to have a diagram so that you can efficiently do that. Because when you can see in a picture the obvious fact that what goes into our mind eventually comes out of our body, or about how our thoughts lead to our emotions and emotions lead to actions and some of those concepts, then we can understand that simplicity is a very powerful thing. And on the right-hand side, we can see how the chiropractic adjustment is a powerful thing, because we take pride in connecting these 4 key area faculties of the brain: the hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, and vestibular nucleus, in a way that I don't think anybody's talking about in all of healthcare. And by the way, when chiropractors would try to talk about what I'm talking about right now, they didn't have the words, they didn't have the Mandelbrot equation, they didn't have functional integration, they didn't have quantum physics descriptions. And so there's a lot of confusion, a lot of, dilemma put on the chiropractor to try to help people understand the ripple effects that happen as a result of your physical shell working better. Okay? But we want to keep this super duper simple, and just remember that as we get into layer 2, we talk about the mind concept. It's very important to have a picture of that, to have a fixed, unchanging principle that your mind indeed does govern over the physical body from above, down, inside out, in a very literal way. And if it was just figurative, if it was just symbolic, then this would still, I think, have meaning and be valuable, at least for me, because it tells me that if life is complex, if something is not going quite right, it's like my dad when he was teaching me how to drive. You're on the ice and it's winter and your car starts going over like this, don't try to overcorrect. Just do a little tweak job and you'll probably straighten course. Think of a football team that goes to the Super Bowl, they lose in the last seconds of the game. Would it be smart for that general manager to say, we got to get a new head coach, we need a new offensive coordinator, we need a new defensive coordinator, we need a new quarterback, we got to trade up in the draft and spend bazillions of dollars to get 10 new players for the next year? That'd be crazy, right? Instead, it'd be smarter if we said, okay, let's play to our strengths. Let's not change anything at all. Except, let's develop a better clock management. Let's use less timeouts. Let's not put ourselves into a position where we think we have to call a timeout. Let's just train and practice and prepare our minds better so that it can play out on the field and we can win the game. You see the brilliance in that? Just changing one thing, keeping everything else the same in order to have that impact, in order to have that result. And that's really what we're striving for here with Above Down inside out. Thanks for watching.